Dollie. I'm the museum manager, and
Hi, and I'm Ann. I'm the curator.
we're here today to talk about women's history and the anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. Votes for women. So on this day in 1920, Tennessee, my home state, became the ratifying state that passed the 19th Amendment that made it part of our Constitution. This gave women the right to vote, but it did not give all women the right to vote.
No.
No, the struggle went on for many more years for women of color, for women from Asian countries like Japan and China. So the franchise took a while. So we're here to honor those women today, to talk a little bit about what we have in our women's history collection. And so that's why we're here. So I wanted to give you just a little background on the 19th Amendment. So this was a 72-year struggle. It kicked off at the Seneca Falls Convention in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848. And then it wasn't until 1920 until the amendment was passed that extended voting rights to some, but not all women. So there was some interesting history out west here. A lot of western states gave women the right to vote in local and state elections before they even got the national vote. In fact, in 1910, women finally got the vote in Washington. They'd had it a couple of times. It went back and forth. They had it. It got taken away. They had it. It got taken away in the late 19th century. And then finally in 1910, they got the right to vote. And then 10 years later, they had the right to vote in national elections. There's some great Washington women's stories going along with suffrage. There was a young woman named Payne who was actually at Seneca Falls, and at 18, she was the youngest signer of the Declaration of Sentiments that came out of that meeting. She moved to Washington with her missionary husband and continued to crusade for women's rights throughout her life. So we are going to talk today with Ann, our curator, about some things we have in our collection that you might find interesting.
Hi, I wanted to highlight 3 items in our collection that were kind of spearheaded by women. One of our first postmasters in Moses Lake was Miss Jessie Mcdonald in the very early 1900s. She headed the post office when it was up there on Division at the Mcdonald store. And we have a few postcards that she sent back to the Midwest with these early Moses Lake postmarks on them, such as 1909. Another woman I'd like to highlight is Bertha Eckles Guffin. She was another postmistress we had in Moses Lake. She helped run the post office in the 1930s. In 1939, the post office was housed in the Moses Lake Inn, which was this huge, grand, luxurious hotel in Moses Lake, multi-story, and that was on West Broadway, downtown Moses Lake. In April 1939, the inn caught on fire, and everything was burning, and Bertha rushed in to grab and save the mail. She was acknowledged for this feat by the Postmaster General, and I don't believe she got hurt or anything, but she saved all the mail that day, and then she was also instrumental in helping find a new location for the post office. Another special artifact we have in our collection is we have this ledger meeting minute guide from the Ladies' Aid Missionary Society. They were part of the Moses Lake Presbyterian Church, a ladies group. And this particular one here that we have on the table is their meeting minutes from 1928 through 1938. And on page 245, we have women talking about how to incorporate our town, which was known as Nepal back then, and how to change the town's name from Nepal to Moses Lake. So on April 27th, 1938, quoted, "While at the refreshment table, Mrs. Leland read a letter from the county commissioners telling how to incorporate our town and also how to go about changing its name. After some discussion, Mrs. Rudberg made a motion, seconded by Blanche Guffin, that Mrs. Leland circulate a petition to incorporate and change the name Nepal to Moses Lake.
So without women, we might still be Nepal?
We might still be Nepal.
We might still be Nepal. Okay.
So it's just very empowering to see, 3 women of Moses Lake history and 3 important jobs that they had.
Do you know much about the job of postmistress at that time?
I don't, but looking back at Moses Lake records, it seemed to be held quite often by women.
Interesting. I wonder if it, had a little power to go along with it. Mail, people need their mail, even more so back then. That was one of the only ways to communicate across long distances. So I imagine you had to have a trustworthy person as postmistress.
And in Moses Lake, the mail was run by a female.
Nice. So one last thing I wanted to tell you, Ann and I are wearing suffrage colors today. They wore purple, they wore yellow, and they wore white. Those are the 3 colors that are most often associated. And if you go online today, there's lots of great stories out there, national news stories about what museums and other cultural institutions are doing around the country to celebrate the ratification of the 19th. Thanks for stopping in. I'm Dollie.
I'm Ann.